UFC Austin is almost here. I'm going to give you my final picks. We're going to talk about lineup construction, strategy, what we need to do to be successful this week, and we'll build some lineups, so make sure you watch until the end. You can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. For starters, if you have not, go back and watch the predictions video from earlier in the week. I got some messages from you saying it's your favorite video on this channel so far. A lot of good information there, and also when you watch that and then watch this, you'll know where I'm coming from in a lot of these spots. Because I want to make something clear, that video is often very different than the final picks video, and not always different in terms of what I'm picking, but I do provide different information then than I do in this kind of video at the end of the week. The reason why I do that is because I want it to stay fresh, entertaining, engaging for you. This should be a fun time while you're doing your research, not something you have to slog through. A lot of these bigger channels are going to give you the same exact breakdown 3 to 5 times in the week, and that's why I say, you absolutely suck! But not here, because I got more respect for you. And we have an excellent fight card this week with 14 fights, probably the best matchups when it comes to UFC fight nights that we've had so far this year. Very excited to get into it. And before I do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, get the algorithm comment out the way early. Now we'll start by going over the value plays that we've identified throughout the week. Starting at 8,000, we have Jeremiah Wells. He's going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate this week, I'm sure. On paper, he does have a good matchup on his hands with Court McGee, who's very hittable, not all that dangerous on the feet, and susceptible to being taken down himself. On top of that, one of Court McGee's most recent losses was to Sean Brady, who shares a lot of the same qualities that Jeremiah Wells has, and he's also his training partner. So game plan wise, I expect Wells to know exactly what to do to be successful in this fight, and that's why I do think that he's a decent play this week, especially when you consider his finishing upside. But of course, he does come with a warning label this week when he's going up against a very tough Court McGee, because Jeremiah Wells might be boom or bust. He throws everything into his strikes, he uses a ton of energy and strength when he's in the clinch, and the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Court McGee. So if Jeremiah Wells goes out there, throws everything at him in the first round, he could gas out, and as a result, we could see McGee take over and steal rounds 2 and 3 and win 29-28. And McGee is a dog. He's historically difficult to finish. He's a grinder, so obviously there's some concern here. But I will say, Court McGee does have to get takedowns if he wants to win this fight, because in fights where he can't get takedowns, he loses. And it's tough to think that he's going to get Jeremiah Wells down, because we've only seen Jeremiah Wells taken down once. And it's tough because Court McGee only has a 25% takedown accuracy. If you look back at some of his fights, he's gone 0 for 6, 0 for 8, 1 for 8, 0 for 11 on takedown attempts. And on the feet, again, he's not really going to offer all that much. I've gone back and forth on this one, and it comes down to trusting either the cardio and durability of a 39-year-old Court McGee or the power, takedown defense, and game plan from Jeremiah Wells. I think Jeremiah Wells can get it done. There's finishing upside here. He's going to be highly owned, but he could score you over 100 Draftkings points. It's tough. I don't think that he wins a decision, but at the same time, if Court McGee can't get him down, I mean, he's probably getting knocked out. So good value here on Jeremiah Wells on a card with, again, not a lot of spots below 8,000 for you to choose from. You might need him for salary purposes, but rest assured he's probably going to come in at 40-50% ownership in most of your contests. Next at 7,900, we have Joe Lauzon. So he's fighting Cowboy this week, and this is tough because, like we talked about earlier in the week, there's durability issues on both sides. I expect Cowboy to carry a decent amount of ownership and a bit more than Lauzon on this slate, which is why I'm starting to lean toward this side of the matchup. What I also like about Joe Lauzon is how Cowboy's first round is always his worst. Like, he normally looks very flat and he needs to get hit a few times, move around a bit, and have some success before he starts fighting at his best. If Lauzon explodes in the first round, he could hurt Cowboy early. Also, Cowboy is 6'1", 39 years old. He doesn't really have any business fighting down at 155. That's a big dude for this division. So physically, I do think that Lauzon is much better suited for this division, and Cowboy made weight a month ago. You don't know how much that's taken out of him. The Cowboy of old is not the same Cowboy we have now, and obviously he's lost some fights, he's made some money, he's done some movies, and if you're anything like me, you've lost plenty of money on Donald Cerrone already. You don't want to keep doing that. So I am going to go with the slightly lower owned guy this week in Joe Lauzon, and last time when this fight was pulled, when DraftKings and the UFC decided to notify us well after lock, the combined ownership for this fight was around 40 to 50% in most contests. So Cowboy was the higher owned of the two at the time, and he was priced up at 8,700. This week he's at 8,300. So I wouldn't be surprised if people are looking at him thinking that they might get a discount this week at 8,300, but personally, I think this is probably the side that you want to be on. And the reason why I say that is because if Lauzon wins, he probably finishes this fight inside the first or second round, and if he does that at 7,900 and most of the favorites win, you're going to need him in your lineup. So I think there's excellent value here at this price. Joe Lauzon at 7,900 is the pick. Our next value play here is all the way down at 7,600. If Joakim Buckley wins by knockout, that wouldn't surprise me one bit. Albert Duraev has 3 pro losses. All 3 of them are knockouts. He was dropped in his UFC debut last time out against Roman Kopylov, and Joakim Buckley is a powerhouse on the feet and a lot to deal with. So obviously the value is built into his price considering how he would win this fight. And that's why I'm talking about him now in the value plays, but the reality is he has to be more aggressive than he has been in the past if he wants to win this fight. And I know you're probably thinking Joakim Buckley is aggressive. He has high pressure, he's moving forward, he's throwing hooks, but he normally is doing that after he's settled into the fight. In the first round, he's relatively low output, and I think if he doesn't bring that aggression in the opening round, he's gonna get taken down, and that's gonna take his gas tank away, and it's gonna take away that knockout threat. He's normally finding his finishes in the second or third round, as you can see here. Impa Kasanganay right at the end of the second round, right at the second round. Ahoyo, third round. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, he goes the distance with. And even if you look at his fights before that, before getting into the UFC, a lot of finishes that he has in his record are coming in the second or third round. If he doesn't get Albert Duraev out of there early, he's gonna get cooked with the wrestling, I guarantee. And the way that I see Duraev taking him down, like we talked about in the video from earlier in the week, which is linked right in the top of the description, Buckley likes to crash into the pocket and throw these hooks, and if he isn't mindful of the takedown, he's gonna find himself in the clinch, trip takedown for Duraev. He's gonna go to work on top and either finish it by way of ground and pound or submission. I see Duraev most likely winning inside the first round or two, but I do think that Buckley is still live, and that's why there's value here at this price. And another guy who's in a very similar position is $7,400 Josh Emmett. So we have to talk about him in this section for a few reasons. First would be leverage. So everybody's looking to play Calvin Kattar this week, which is fair. Kattar is the better fighter. He's taller, he's longer, he's faster, he's younger, he's crisper, he's more active, he has fewer injuries, he has better volume. So obviously most people are going to be playing Calvin Kattar, who's coming in at a sizable favorite, but the value on the Josh Emmett side can't be ignored. The power that he's shown in the last couple of years is absurd. Like one of the highest knockdown rates, if not the highest knockdown rate in the UFC. The guy has 11 knockdowns in his last 7 fights. He has also recorded a knockdown in all of these 7 fights as well. So it's not like he's knocking somebody down a bunch and then he's not knocking anybody down. He's doing it on a very consistent basis. So clearly he hits harder than anybody at the featherweight division right now, and Calvin Kattar is very hittable. On top of that, they have 25 minutes to work with, so he's going to land punches at some point. That's obvious, which means the possibility of him landing a big shot is very, very high. And to go a step further, when you look at significant strikes landed in Calvin Kattar's fights, the numbers are always very close. So while we talk about Kattar's volume, he's normally matched by his opponents. And the reason why his opponents are matching his volume is because he's not afraid to stand and trade, and he's not throwing huge power at them. And when you look at who Calvin Kattar has fought, Josh Emmett is by far the biggest puncher out of all of them. And again, I do think that Calvin Kattar probably gets it done this week, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a knockdown or two from Josh Emmett, maybe even a late finish. And the reason why I say a knockdown or two is because Calvin Kattar is tough. I could see him getting shocked with something, a flash knockdown, get right back up, get back into the fight, but that's a stolen round for Josh Emmett. And like we talked about when we broke down Julian Marquez earlier in the week, a good chin is a good chin until it isn't. So don't look at Calvin Kattar as if he's this guy who can take anything that's thrown at him. Biology does have a limit. So I think that there's surprisingly sneaky value here at 7,400. Being in the main event, being the underdog, he's going to carry a little bit of ownership, of course, but you're looking at a situation where Calvin Kattar is probably going to be 70 to 80% owned in most contests, You get huge leverage against the field by going with Josh Emmett, and if he wins, you're in a really good spot. And my last value play here is $7,100 Natalia Silva. She's going to be fighting Jasmine Jasudavicius this week, and I can tell you that I have a fair amount of confidence on this side of the matchup. Jasudavicius has largely fought very low-level competition. She likes to wrestle her opponents and control the pace of the fight, which we saw against Kay Hansen. But for someone who likes to grapple and that's her go-to, you would think that she would beat Elise Reed, especially in Elise Reed's second pro fight ever, right? Wrong. She loses to Elise Reed, who can't defend a takedown to save her life. We know that based on her fight with Sijara Eubanks, which we thought, well, she was making her debut. Sijara Eubanks is a good grappler, but then she let Sam Hughes ragdoll her and then finish her. Very, very bad look. Now she's going to be going up against the best grappler she's probably ever faced in Natalia Silva, who could easily snatch up an armbar from bottom position. And I think that the Jasudavicius love here is mostly because she won as an underdog against Kay Hansen, but Kay Hansen's awful. Her record is 7-6. She was cut from the UFC. That would be like if Maria Oliveira went out and beat Gloria de Paula this week and became a big favorite the next time that she fights. And that's something that I've noticed. If you win as an underdog, people love you to death and they overestimate your abilities. If you win as a favorite, nobody bats an eye, really. So yes, she did beat Kay Hansen. Yes, she did win on Contender Series, but I'm not really sold on Jasudavicius just yet. I believe that her record right now is a product of soft matchmaking and low-level competition. I could see a competent grappler giving her trouble, and I think that's exactly what she has on her hands this week against Natalia Silva. And a submission win for Silva at extremely low ownership on a card like this where there aren't many underdogs could end up breaking the slate, and it's women's MMA, which is basically a roll of the dice every time. I think there's really solid value here at $7,100, and it also helps you do a lot of things in your lineup because we just got some news at the time of recording this that we need to look into now. This man has just missed weight. This is not a good look. Not a good look at all. So we're looking at a situation where we already liked Adrian Yanez. Tony Kelley's very hittable, relies on his durability to get him through spots. He doesn't offer a submission threat. He doesn't offer a takedown threat. And he's going to be up against a guy who's faster than him, younger than him, in front of his home crowd. This is bad biscuits for Tony Kelley.
Bad biscuits, brother.
Bad biscuits make the baker broke, bro.
And now I think this makes Adrian Yanez all the more viable in this spot because you know he's going to land, you know he's got the volume, you know he's got power, and they're going to be standing and trading right in the middle of the ring. And you're also looking at a situation where Tony Kelley probably feels he needs to win more than ever because he's forfeiting a decent amount of his purse as a result of the weight miss. So let's start with building lineups here. If we threw in Adrian Yanez and we also came down here to Natalia Silva to kind of balance things out. So now if you did want to come to the mid-range, I think a good starting place is looking at Jeremiah Wells or Joe Lauzon. Durability-wise, skill set-wise, I do give the advantage to Wells, but he's going to come in at much higher ownership than Joe Lauzon. So if we did plug Lauzon in, now we have remaining average salary at $85.33, and we can make some things happen. We can grab Gregory Rodrigues, we could grab Damir Ismagulov, we can grab Albert Duraev. So now we're looking at a situation where we're very different here. We don't have the main event, but we do have some good matchups on our hands. You have Albert Duraev, who's got the grappling advantage. Damir Ismagulov, who might be able to take Kutateladze down at will the same way Gamrot did. Gregory Rodrigues, who has way more tools against Julian Marquez, and I think is probably going to finish him by way of submission at some point. Joe Lauzon, you're hoping for a little bit of leverage over the Cowboy owners and also that first round upside. Natalia Silva probably going overlooked this week. Adrian Yanez now against an opponent who has missed weight. I think that is a huge difference maker. Now if you didn't want to go this route, and let's say you took out Adrian Yanez and you wanted to go to Calvin Kattar because of the 5 rounds to work with, possible finishing upside late in the fight, this is something that I think you can get away with as well, leaving about $700 salary on the table to get different. I think this is something that would really work in a lot of your contests. If you were hoping for more finishing upside, you could come off of Damir Ismagulov, and this opens up the ability to play Kyle Dawkins, who I think could finish his fight, but I think he's less likely to get a finish than Kevin Holland is, or Phil Hawes. So if you wanted to come up here to Kevin Holland, I think that makes a lot of sense as well. The dude can crack. He's got a lot of physical advantages over the Dirty Bird. Dirty Bird's getting old. I think that this is a good spot for Kevin Holland to shine and get back to his finishing ways. You could also come off of Kevin Holland and go up to Phil Hawes, who is going to have a 6-inch height advantage, 7-inch reach advantage. I think there's a couple ways that you can go about it, but the two underdog plays, Natalia Silva and Joe Lauzon, they help you do a couple of things. And quick pause, one thing that I wanted to mention is I decided what to do with these signed bad boys right here. We are going to do a DraftKings contest. It'll be a single entry contest for a field of up to 200 players, so 200 of you will have a chance to win here. What I'm going to need from you is I'm going to need you to put your DraftKings username down in the comments so that I can add you as a friend, so I can send you an invitation. So we're going to break it into 2 events. So you're going to have the first event at UFC 276 where you can win one of these, second event where you can win the other. If you win both, you're pretty damn good at DFS. But again, the only way that you can enter is if you put your DraftKings username down in the comments so that I can add you as a friend. That's the only way that I could send you an invitation to the private contest. We have fight night this week, we have another fight night next week, and then you have UFC 276 where you'll have a chance to win. I will talk about this again during next week's videos, but if you want to get a jump on it early, put your DraftKings username in the comments. Now, if you aren't sold on Natalia Silva, then you can take her out, but the next best option then when you're looking at this is probably Joakim Buckley, which means we'd come off of Albert Duraev, come back here to 8,200, 8,000, 7,800. This is the range that you would fall back in. So if you maintain this lineup with these 5 fighters, then you're looking at a situation where you're either playing Court McGee to get big leverage over the Jeremiah Wells owners, you're playing Jeremiah Wells for the finishing upside. Kutateladze would work in this lineup because we don't have Damir Ismagulov. Roman Dolidze would work in this lineup because we don't have Kyle Dawkins, but I don't think he's going to be able to handle Kyle Dawkins. I think Dawkins is a little too dangerous. And Josh Emmett doesn't really work in this lineup because you have Calvin Kattar. So you're looking at a situation where you're probably playing one of these 3 guys right here, which if I had to choose, it would probably be Jeremiah Wells. Now, if you wanted to come down from Phil Hawes a little bit because Phil Hawes is sus, he's a hard guy to trust, I get it. You can come down here to Kyle Dawkins, for example. Now you have 500 left over. Now you can make some other things happen in your lineup. One of the things that you can do is you can come off of Joe Lauzon if you weren't too confident and just go with the other side in Cowboy Cerrone. And you most likely will need the winner of that fight in your lineup because I do not see it going the distance with the way these guys have looked in the last few years. I know that some people have some love for Julian Marquez, so if we wanted to go the other way with Julian Marquez, something like this could work. And now you could do some other things in your lineup. So let's say, for example, you wanted to come off of Buckley and you come down here to Silva. You've got 1,400 left over, which means you can do just about anything. If I'm in this position, I probably come off of Jeremiah Wells and you can come all the way up here to Adrian Yanez. You can get real sneaky with Gloria de Paula, who not many people are going to roster and is live for a finish in my opinion. Or you can go for what might be the safer play with Phil Hawes. But this goes back to the idea that Natalia Silva helps you do a lot of things in your lineup. But the reality is, when you look at the plays below 8,000, I'm really only confident in Jeremiah Wells, Joe Lauzon, Natalia Silva. Everybody else I don't think has that great a shot of winning despite us having 14 fights here. Tony Kelley was somebody that I think could sneak into the conversation, but after he misses weight, I don't think that that is something that's viable this week. I do think that he might be getting knocked out in this spot. Eddie Wineland, I can't play with any confidence. He does have really good takedown defense. He has a better set of hands on him than Cody Stamann does, so we might see a situation where he's able to grind out a decision win just because the judges haven't been friendly to the grapplers lately. So if Cody Stamann is spending a lot of time just pushing him up against the fence and then they get out on the feet and Eddie Wineland is able to outland him just a little bit, they might give him the round. Who knows, if he does that 2 out of 3 rounds, he could win this fight, score around 70 DraftKings points, and then end up on the winning lineup because he's so cheap. But let's for a second entertain the idea of going with Josh Emmett. So you're either confident enough in his ability to find a knockout or you're willing to roll the dice and go against the field. Well, with Josh Emmett in our lineup, let's say you coupled that with Natalia Silva, now you can do basically anything, which means we can come all the way up here and start looking at these more expensive plays, like for example, Phil Hawes, Kevin Holland, Albert Duraev, Kyle Daukaus. This stretch of 4 fighters are 4 that you can feel really good about. Let's say you came off of Kyle Daukaus and you came down here to grab Cowboy. Now you have $700 salary left on the table, which means you could do something like come up from Kevin Holland to go grab Adrian Yanez. Let's say you were confident in the other side of the Cowboy Lauzon matchup, so you grab Joe Lauzon. Now you have $600 left over. You could come up here to $9,200 Gloria de Paula, who's going to come in at around 10% ownership. Now you've rostered both the women's MMA fights. You've got Josh Emmett. There's a very different lineup despite you not having any salary on the table. I don't expect a lot of people to approach it this way. With a lineup like this, you're foregoing a lot of the more popular plays like Kevin Holland, obviously Calvin Kattar. I think Cody Stamen's going to carry a decent amount of ownership despite being that expensive. Albert Duraev, you're looking at a situation where a lot of people will probably play him. A lot of people probably want the winner of the RoboCop Cuban Missile Crisis fight here. But again, this is kind of you banking on the idea that Josh Emmett's going to be able to get it done for you. Now for cash games, if you wanted to, I do think it's a viable strategy this week to stack the main event. So you're looking at Calvin Kattar, you come down here to Josh Emmett, you've kind of balanced out the salary a little bit. Now you can go back to that mid-range where you're looking at the Duraevs, the Greg Rodriguez's, the Jeremiah Wells, the Joe Lauzons. If you wanted to sweeten the deal a little bit because you're scared of Greg Rodriguez's chin, I totally get it. You can come up here to Phil Hawes. You can switch Phil Hawes out with Kevin Holland. You're starting to get it, right? You're starting to understand the pattern that we're falling into. There's a couple of guys that I think make a lot of sense in the mid-range. You want to target, I think, Kevin Holland. I think Albert Duraev. I think that Phil Hawes. These are all really good, safe plays in my opinion. And just to quickly run through the card for you now, we have Calvin Kattar at the top. I expect him to win. I expect Joe Lauzon, Kevin Holland, Albert Duraev also win. I think you have a very close matchup here with Ismagulov and Kutateladze, but I've changed my mind on this from earlier in the week. I'm going to go with Damir Ismagulov. I like Gregory Rodrigues, again, more tools. I like Adrian Yanez even more now with the Tony Kelley weight miss. I think Natalia Silva gets it done. I think Jeremiah Wells gets it done. Ricardo Ramos gets it done. Gloria de Paula, Cody Stamen, Phil Hawes, and then Kyle Daukaus. And if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. That way I can bring more of this to you.